Hey, let me talk about chapters 3 to 6 of Harriet the Spy. This basically finishes off book one, where we're introduced to Harriet and friends at school and to um, Miss Golly, Old Golly as she calls her. You know, it's probably not that old, probably younger than me, you never know. Um, and it starts off with Miss Golly taking her on a trip out to see her mother. Uh, and we end with Miss Golly taking her on a kind of a sudden outing with her boyfriend, Mr. Waldenstein, to the movies just for some soda. Uh, you know, this section starts off with Harriet, having spying upon Miss Golly, knowing that she's going out for going out for her Thursday off, and gets to see Mr. Waldenstein, who is a delivery guy. Um, we learn later that he was a successful businessman, but he wasn't happy, and he gave everything up, and he gave it all to his wife and her son, who said, like, if you want to, you can come with me, but if not, you don't. And she didn't. And he has a little bit of bitterness about that. Um, but I guess he is now single because of that, and has been happy having time to kind of think and just be a simple delivery guy. He's now kind of slowly work his way up. He's decided to take a job as a cashier, and we find and they he comes over unexpectedly, at least unexpectedly for Harriet, to kind of have a little dinner with with Miss Golly, Old Golly, and her ward, as Mr. Waldenstein says. And Harriet is very kind of fascinated with this whole thing of, like, how do you know you're in love with someone? She like asks her mother, and her mother actually tells her, well, like, how did you meet father? It's like, I met him on a ship going to Europe, which, having read at least that far in the biography of Louise Fitzhugh, I know that is actually how her parents met. I don't know if her father threw up on her mother's shoes when the first time they met and he passed out, but that is how they do how the Welshes meet in this book. Um, but Harriet's kind of fascinated by this, and it just kind of makes some interesting observations because it watches Miss Golly interact with Mr. Waldenstein without her present. And it's like, do people act differently with different people? It's like, Harriet has all these kind of, like, very kind of interesting insights of, like, she's trying to figure out people, and it's like, yeah, people seem to act differently depending on who they're with. And it's like, she'd always told me that didn't want to eat any more German food, and movies would just rot your brain, but they go to a German restaurant apparently and go to a movie. And This section here, we kind of get a little bit of more of, like, Miss Golly not as infallible. Old Golly is not infallible, because Mr. Waldenstein kind of suggests, hey, let's go to a movie tonight, and we'll take Harriet with us. And Miss Golly's like, that's not really a good idea, but she's talked over, and they go out. They have a kind of a fun thing. Miss Golly is very much in love. Doesn't watch the movie, is just kind of looking into Mr. Waldenstein's eyes. Harriet, this is all from Harriet's point of view, but she notices. And they get back, and all the lights are on in the house because the parents have come home early, and Miss Walsh is freaking out, and yells at her and says, you're fired. But it turns out that that Old Golly has actually accepted a proposal for marriage and is going to go off with Mr. Waldenstein, and it was planning to be a month, but it's now going to be basically sort of the next day that, yeah, Old Golly is leaving. And they get to have a goodbye, and Miss Old Golly has her words of kind of wisdom at the end of, like, don't cry, tears don't help. It's like, you're a spy, you got to get in there and fight and do your thing, which is really great. Oh, and they have a scene of Old Golly starting doing the the pigs ends with a kind of a quote. I think it's Lewis Carroll. And pigs have wings, of just we talk of many things of horse, and they finish each other's lines, and it's really kind of a good union. But it's like old Golly saying, like, this is a good thing for me, but also a good thing for Harriet, because Harriet isn't really at the age anymore where she needs a nursemaid. She's big enough that she doesn't need that anymore. And that's sort of how we end book one, is Old Golly leaving. And actually, it's funny because we had started out this uh, just from reading Sometimes You Have to Lie, that it's like, oh, why is Harriet so angry? It's like, well, it's because her nursemaid left and she didn't say why. But that doesn't actually seem to be the case. They actually seem to be having a fairly healthy parting. Though I can see that if as things get harder for Harriet as the story goes on, maybe her notebook gets discovered, she might regress a bit and want that comfort again, because Old Golly, if anything, is the kind of the comfort, kind of wisdom, calmness in her life that she's going to have to bring herself now, because her parents, I don't think, are particularly, especially her mother, is not particularly capable of doing that. Her mother being the one who's super freaked out when something happened. Uh, yeah, yeah. So that is book one of Harriet the Spy, and we will continue more videos later.